Story 1. I've never thought to myself, I need to get that tattooed on me. Story 2. I told myself that if I found a design I liked, I would wait a year, and if I still liked it, I would get it. I still have not gotten any tattoos. Story 3. I can't even figure out what to eat in the next 30 minutes, let alone commit to a permanent mark on my body that would cost hundreds of dollars I don't have. It requires too much research and money. Story 4. I do not have the same favorite movie for more than 2 weeks at a time. How am I going to choose an image I think I will like for decades? Also, money. Story 5. I have always been indecisive. As a kid, I had stickers but never put them on anything because I might want to use them somewhere else later. Story 6. I do not like how they look, and there is nothing I like enough to implant in my body permanently. Story 7. I don't have the money, and I don't have anything I like enough to get permanently added to my skin. I don't want to be like a water bottle covered in stickers. If it's going on, it has to mean something, and nothing has meant enough for that. Story 8. The answer is so simple that most people reject it. I just don't like how they look. Sorry, I cannot offer a deeper explanation. Story 9. I prefer a natural look. I rarely like body modifications, including tattoos, piercings, and unnatural hair colors. Story 10. I cringe when I think about outfits I have worn or media I used to adore. I am pretty sure I would regret a tattoo eventually. Story 11. I look back with a chuckle at my style choices 10 to 15 years ago. Imagine choosing a style today and being forced to wear it every day for the rest of my life. No thanks. Story 12. I have a large, persistent bacterial presence in my bloodstream from severe cystic acne as a teenager. I am prone to frequent bacterial infections as a result, and tattoos and piercings increase the risk of infection. I have enough health issues, and although I do not mind tattoos on other people, I cannot get piercings or tattoos myself. I have been dealing with this for over 50 years. Story 13. I have obsessive-compulsive disorder and hate it if I even get a pen mark on me. I cannot imagine having something permanently there. Story 14. I can't imagine anything I wouldn't come to regret. I think semi-permanent tattoos should be a thing. I could do a 2-year commitment. Story 15. I swim laps for exercise. After talking to some people on Reddit, I was told I would have to take 6 weeks off. I am not staying out of the pool for 6 weeks. Story 16. I would rather be a blank slate and use clothing and accessories to change up my look. I do not want any one thing that is always there. Story 17. I could not decide what to buy, where to buy it, or how much I wanted to pay, and by the time I decided, someone else had already bought it. Story 18. Not having them is my default position. I have no reason or desire to get one, and at this point they are so mainstream that most are adopted out of conformity. Story 19. To be honest, I think they are stupid and a huge waste of money. Story 20. Getting a tattoo is a lifelong commitment, and I do not want to have that potential regret years down the road. I do not mind seeing them on others. It is just not my thing. Story 21. Jewish mid-50s. Tattoos never seemed like a good idea. I'm recalling those events from 80 years ago. Story 22. I do not think I have or need a reason not to get a tattoo. Story 23. I have yet to find any piece of art I want to take to my grave. Story 24. I have not found anything that I would like to have on my body for the rest of my life. I am not completely against it. I just have not found anything yet. My father passed away recently, so I might consider something because of that, but I am not sure. Story 25. I don't want to spend money on them. I realized I'm not attached enough to put them on my body. Story 26. I have never seen a single tattoo in person and thought, that looks good. Just personal preference. Story 27. Nothing has passed my due, I still want it after 1-year test. Story 28. I do not care enough about anything to get a tattoo of it. Story 29. What would I get a tattoo of? I look at traditional tattoos occasionally. I see animals. I saw incredible art by a Polish tattoo artist that genuinely impressed me. They really need an entire back to have the full effect. I admire them, but they are a lot. I also see spider webs on knees and elbows. Not for me. I like how siblings get matching tattoos. I see people with the semicolon tattoo and understand only a small part of what that person is going through, having experienced and still experiencing depression. Nothing has really touched me in a way I want others to see. Life is hard enough. Story 30. They do not fit my personal ethos. But that is a moot point because I am so extremely hairy I would be hard-pressed to find 2 square inches of bare skin. Story 31. I can't get over the fact that tattoos are permanent on my skin and cannot be washed off, and I don't know why that freaks me out so much. I think tattoos can be a beautiful art form and I appreciate many of them, but I cannot mentally accept having a tattoo. Story 32. If I had gotten a tattoo at 18, it would have said born to drag. I'm not sure it would have aged well. Story 33. I am indecisive and have no money, and I know I will hate it a week later. Story 34. My honest opinion is that they look awful and very trashy. I feel the same way about elaborate nails, unconventional hair colors, any kind of body modification, dermal fillers, Botox, and so on. It just looks cheap. Story 35. When I was a kid, I had an uncle who had a tattoo from World War II. At first, it was okay, but as he grew older and fatter, it became worse. It was an easy decision for me never to get one. Story 36. I am extremely fickle. I got a temporary henna tattoo on my bicep that was supposed to last a week. After about an hour, I was searching online for how to remove it quickly because I could not stand having it for another minute. Story 37. I was never so enamored with a piece of graffiti that I wanted it needled into my skin for a lifetime. Story 38. I made a promise to my grandmother that I would never get a tattoo because she hated them. Shortly after, I joined the Marine Corps. She passed away while I was deployed. I am still tattoo-free to this day. Story 39. They used to be cool and interesting because they were uncommon and usually meant something. Now people sticker bomb themselves. Story 40. You don't put a bumper sticker on a 1976 Ford Fiesta. Story 41. I didn't used to, but after losing a dog who meant the world to me, I had her name tattooed on my upper thigh. Story 42. I do not like tattoos. For the most part, one find them unattractive, and I will not date people who have what I consider too many or too large tattoos. That is not a blanket rule because tattoos are very common now, and I would not rule someone out if they have a small design on their arm. Story 43. I have interviewed hundreds of people over the years for almost every position in my company. I have never discriminated against anyone because of race, religion, or gender. I have, however, judged and discriminated against people with certain tattoos. I am not interested in a person representing my company who has a skull tattoo on their neck. You may disagree, but it is my responsibility to make sure my employees represent our business in a way that benefits everyone. My advice is to keep your tattoos tasteful or out of sight. The same goes for piercings. Nobody in the business world wants to see a metal rod through the nose or a very large hole in the ear. I am sorry. Story 44. I have thought about it, but nothing has inspired me enough to commit. Maybe one day. Story 45. Family history of keloid scarring and general indecisiveness. Story 46. I am a 67-year-old grandmother. When I was young, we did not even consider it. It was only for men. I would love to get a small matching one with my daughters now, but other health issues prevent it. Story 47. There is nothing in this world important enough to tattoo onto my skin instead of just enjoying it as it is. Why do people get tattoos of their kids' names? Just spend time with your child. The same applies to partners or family. If they die, that does not justify a tattoo. Look at their photos. Of course, tattoos can be aesthetic, a way to put an artful spin on a story. I would either create my own artwork or frame something. I would make a shirt. I do not need to wear it. Tattoos are for other people to comment on. I do not think anyone would have one if they did not want it to be seen or shown off. Story 48. I have seen nothing I consider tattoo-worthy except a doodle on a pizza restaurant menu. It read, "Love dies, pizza is forever," and showed a man riding a dolphin down a river while eating pizza. Story 49. Long story, but I was smart enough not to get one when I was 16. Story 50. I am cartoonishly indecisive and cannot make the commitment. Story 51. I do not care about getting tattoos just to be relatable to other people. Story 52. I don't like them. For the most part, they are simply ugly. Story 53. Personal opinion. Most of them are trashy and lower your value, and I never thought they looked good. Story 54. There's a bit in Robin Williams' Broadway special where he talks about how tattoos are stupid because they stay with you your entire life. No matter what you intend a tattoo to look like, as you age it is going to change. The line barbed wire becomes a picket fence always stuck with me. While I've never been interested in a tattoo, a small part of me is in memory of Robin Williams. Story 55. There is nothing I have ever seen or imagined that I would like forever or always want to be associated with. Story 56. I never saw one that made me want it on my body for the rest of my life. Story 57. I have not thought of anything that is so significant to me that I want to permanently memorialize on my body. Story 58. I can't think of anything that I won't be bored of looking at after a few years. Story 59. Every time I think about it, I decide I have better uses for my money. I have completed designs for about 50% coverage, but I may only get one or two eventually. Story 60. I have never seen a tattoo I thought was attractive on anyone. Why would I put that permanently on my body? Story 61. I like myself the way I am. I do not feel the need to decorate myself like a Chipotle bag. Story 62. Everyone has tattoos these days. It is more original not to have one. Story 63. I cannot think of anything that I want to put on my skin permanently. Story 64. I know no one will see this, but I do not care. Here is my favorite Ozzy Osbourne quote. If you want to be a fucking individual, do not get a tattoo. Every fucker has got one these days. Ozzy Osbourne. Unfortunately, I do have one I got when I was young. A skull on my stomach. Story 65. I've seen what happens when tattoos age on the people who have them. Story 66. I have enough scars. I do not need to pay someone to mark me up even more. Story 67. Should I permanently alter my body in ways that do not offer tangible benefits but may lead to a lifetime of regret? Story 68. It is the same reason I do not have any bumper stickers. There is nothing I want to broadcast to the random people around me, and generally I respect the car's lines. Story 69. I don't like the art that's possible on skin. Tattoos all fade into indistinct blue blobs. I'm individual enough without a tattoo, and not having one is more unusual than having one. All of the above to varying degrees. Story 70. If tattoos disappeared whenever you wanted, I would get one. I do not want decisions I made at 20 to be around when I am 60. It used to be a sign of rebellion. Now, not getting a tattoo feels more rebellious. I am a badass. Story 71. Far too expensive and difficult to remove. Both are painful. Story 72. I have never felt the ironic need to express my individuality by doing exactly what everyone else is doing. They are fucking ugly. Story 73. Old enough to see cool things turn into cringe. Mullets were awesome. Then they became a joke. Now they are back. But they will fade again. Life is impermanent. A tattoo is too. Story 74. I have nothing against tattoos. To each their own. Seeing tattoos on other people gives me no inspiration to get one myself. I'm not exactly a looker, and I don't want to make things worse. Story 75. It would be a waste of money for something I might not like. I also work in a profession where visible tattoos are considered unprofessional. Story 76. I am not a Marine or a female porn star. I think nothing is more beautiful than untattooed skin. I cannot stomach porn past 2010 for this reason. Downvote away. At least I do not draw on my skin with a permanent marker. Laughing out loud. That is one hell of a choice. Story 77. Tattoos feel to me like permanent graffiti on the body. Story 78. As someone with 16 tattoos and planning to get more, I think people who judge others for having or not having tattoos should mind their own business. Getting a tattoo is a personal and essentially permanent decision and should not be taken lightly. As long as it is not harming anyone, let people live their lives. Story 79. I have never been vain enough about my body to want to decorate it. Story 80. I have no desire to draw attention to myself by getting ink injected into my skin to show others how tough I am or to reveal low self-esteem that leads to bad decisions. Story 81. Personally, I find them cheap and tacky. I should add that this is just my opinion. All my friends know how I feel, and we tease each other. Story 82. I think they are unattractive. They fade and worsen over time, are expensive, and make getting professional jobs harder if always visible. Story 83. For the same reason I have not grafted multiple noses onto my back. I do not want to. Story 84. Simply because I do not see the purpose. I do not mind others having them for various reasons. Some of it makes sense. I know a well-known tattoo artist. He has been on television, doing tattoos for some famous people. It is just not my thing. Story 85. For almost any design, I can get a graphic t-shirt for about $30 or less. I am thrifty and do not want anything permanent that could be damaged or warp over time. Story 86. They disgust me. I have nothing to do with tattooed people. Story 87. I am too broke. I am too sensitive to pain. Tattoos are too permanent when my tastes change. They require too much work and time, and it is hard to find the right artist. I am also sensitive to inks and dyes. Finally, tattoos conflict with my beliefs. Story 88. Getting a tattoo has never appealed to me. I would be enduring pain, expense, and risk of infection so someone could use my skin as a permanent display. Even if it were my own design, I don't view my skin as a blank canvas for decoration. It is my skin, an organ of my body. It has functions in its own right and does not need added designs. Also, it is not a superficial image. The practitioner would be inserting ink into my body where it does not belong. No, thank you. Story 89. I dislike any markings or stains on my skin. Even a little ballpoint pen ink would make me livid and hyperfocused. I would feel dirty because it would not wash off easily. Tattoos make me feel a surge of disgust when I see them on other people. Having one on myself would take too long to get used to. I am an artist and prefer to express myself through other mediums. I am fair-skinned, too pudgy, and too hairy for any tattoo to be flattering. Story 90. I would have to design and draw it myself, and I have not come up with anything nor have I ever had any strong desire to do so. Story 91. Flip side. Why do you wear clothing that has random, meaningless words or brand names on it? I met a guy who had Libertado Muerte on a t-shirt, so I asked him what it would be, liberty or death. He just looked at me blankly. After a bit of discussion, I found out he did not realize what his own t-shirt said. He just thought it looked cool. The only tattoo I am planning is Do Not Resuscitate. Story 92. I have always seen tattoos as dirty, an act of rebellion, a lack of future thinking, short-sighted, impulsive, ugly and unattractive, a dumb person's attempt to look cool. It is like someone saying they smoke to look cool but permanent. So I never wanted to be seen that way. Story 93. I am too awkward to talk to an artist. I do not just walk into the first shop I see. I research a quality artist, but when it comes time to message or call, I am too shy to reach out. Story 94. I was raised to see them as trashy, signaling that the person was psychologically unstable, dangerous, or from a trashy family, and that the natural human body was the peak of beauty. If I got one, I would feel I was ruining my body. That being said, I have always wished I did not feel that way, because I think they can be really pretty and interesting. It did not help that my dad retouched photos of the greats for museums and galleries, so I notice every imperfection. I would probably end up scratching it off or constantly trying to fix it. Story 95. I have never felt the desire to get one. It is not because of family, religion, or anything else. It simply does not appeal to me. Story 96. I have more to say than what I decided to tattoo on my arm when I was 25. I would hate to have to tell the story of that tattoo for the rest of my life. No thanks. Story 97. Because if I got tattoos, my parents would absolutely kill me once they saw them. Story 98. I never thought of anything I cared about enough. At this point, I think it's more interesting to have nothing. Story 99. Back when I wanted one, I couldn't afford it, and by the time I could, I no longer wanted one because I can't think of anything that inspires me enough to have it permanently inked on my body. Story 100. I do not want anything permanent, and I have no interest in it. There was nothing I liked. Story 101. I have no tattoos because I like to go against the grain and rebel. Story 102. I think a tattoo makes you less unique because someone else probably has the same design, while no one else in the world is exactly like you. Story 103. I like several icons I could picture getting tattooed. As a big fan of video games, I could see getting a tattoo of the Legend of Zelda Triforce crest, the icons for the Mage and Magician classes from World of Warcraft and EverQuest, or some Junkrat iconography from Overwatch. I do not think about it much, and I have never had a strong desire to go through the process and expense. Story 104. I do not see the point of expressing my individuality the same way millions of others do. Story 105. I think it is trashy, and I prefer art to be displayed on a wall. Story 106. I think one needs a reason to get it as opposed to not getting it. Story 107. I am conflict avoidant, and my parents yell bloody murder at me when I visit. I am 23. Story 108. I do not really like how they age most of the time. If I get something, I feel my opinion will change after a few years. Story 109. Back in the day, only gangbangers or sailors had them, and I cannot shed the association. Story 110. I do not want an image permanently inked on my body. No offense to people who do. It is nice that tattoos have become more socially acceptable for jobs in my lifetime, but they are still not for me. Story 111. I do not even like the socks I wore yesterday anymore. Story 112. I just don't think it would be authentic for me. I'm not an artsy guy. Story 113. It would be very boring for me to see the same drawing. I can reflect my achievements in other ways. Personally, tattoos are for criminals, narcos, and people with little training. However, nowadays tattoos are like arrows. Every Indian has one. Story 114. No interest whatsoever. No tattoos, no piercings. The trend was really picking up when I was in my 20s, and I thought it was stupid. I do not judge anyone for having tattoos unless they are excessive or especially ugly. My wife has a few. It is just not my thing. I am a metal fan who went to so many shows in my 20s and 30s. In that community, I am actually more rebellious than most because they are all covered in flaming skulls and satanic spiders vomiting blood on nuns, and I am completely bare. I know exactly what tattoo I would get if I ever had the urge. A pair of small curly braces somewhere easily hidden. I am a software developer, and curly braces are meaningful to me. I am also Jewish, and Jews are traditionally discouraged from getting tattoos, but that is not a major factor. Story 115. I have not experienced anything that I want to commemorate permanently on my skin with subdermal ink. Story 116. I'm fickle and I suffer from buyer's remorse after nearly every frivolous purchase. I know I'll regret something about it even if it comes out perfect. Story 117. I have a long-standing suspicion that this trend will eventually end and tattoos will be seen as tacky and generic. For example, if everyone is cool, no one is cool. I will be a rarity with my unblemished body. I stopped wanting to draw on myself around 11th grade anyway. Story 118. They are no longer exciting. Everyone has one, and many owners are neither sailors nor ex-convicts. Story 119. I never cared for them. I am sensitive to pain, and I now have psoriasis. So even if I wanted one, it is probably not something I should get. Story 120. I do not regret not having one. There is nothing I want permanently on my body. Story 121. I've always seen two scenarios. Either I cheapen myself by putting something dumb on my body, or I cheapen the artwork or idea by putting a meaningful design on my body. Story 122. I have never seen them look good on anyone. I cannot think of a logical reason to have one, so I never got one. Story 123. When we were children, Tattoos were associated with gang members and were frowned upon. Nobody dared to get them, and having one made you an outcast. As we grew older and tattoos became more acceptable, people began getting them as proof of love. I did not want my boyfriend's name permanently on my body. When I had a child, I considered getting his name on my back. He is now 26, and I still do not have a tattoo. Now getting a tattoo feels like trying too hard to be popular. Everyone has one, and I want to be different, so no tattoos for me. Story 124. I believe a tattoo should have personal meaning. I have not yet found one that would do that for me. Story 125. I could not think of anyone I would want to grow old with. Story 126. They make people think less of you whether you like it or not. I've got enough strikes already, laughing out loud. No need to add more. Story 127. I don't believe in anything strongly enough to get a tattoo. I barely feel passionate enough about anything to buy a t-shirt referencing it. Story 128. A worthless exercise in applying an expensive, permanent fad to yourself. Some of those designs are beautiful, but they are more fitting on canvas than on somebody's face. Story 129. I donate blood regularly, and I would rather not wait a year to donate again after getting a tattoo. Story 130. Tattoos are generally frowned upon in my country. Many places do not allow people with tattoos, such as gyms, spas, and hot springs. Visible tattoos can also limit job opportunities. I do not personally know anyone with a tattoo, but they have become somewhat more common among younger generations, although they are still not widespread. Story 131. As someone with psoriasis, I want smooth, healthy skin. Many people naturally have that, but they spoil it with tattoos. Story 132. I live in a country and work in a profession where a tattoo could make or break a job interview. Story 133. I am good enough as I am. I am not so insecure that I would mark my body with graffiti to impress someone who does not matter. Story 134. I don't have the same posters on my wall from 40 years ago. Story 135. If I had wanted to scribble all over myself, I would have done it in elementary school out of boredom. I have 3 Sharpies here. I will scribble an anchor on your arm for $5. Story 136. Even with the things I am passionate about, I worry that having a tattoo of subject will make me the subject guy. For the same reason, I will not put a decal or bumper sticker on my car. Story 137. I easily get bored. I will probably regret it at some point. Story 138. Turns out I'm allergic to tattoo ink. I found out the hard way. Story 139. I am 35 and heavily tattooed, including career killer tattoos on my neck and hands. I regret every one of them. The stigma is correct. I have changed as a person and grown tired of the designs. It is what it is, I guess. Story 140. I am cheap and I do not want a generic tattoo that anyone else has. Story 141. I don't think there's a tattoo I wouldn't get sick of. Story 142. I'm fickle. I've watched my friends' tattoos get blurry, so no thanks. Henna is fun, though. Story 143. Aesthetically, I do not like tattoos. I have never seen a tattoo that I thought looked good. There are some nice ones, of course, but I would not put one on myself or want to see one on someone else's skin. This is my personal opinion. Story 144. I get bored easily. I see skin as an accessory that does not need to be modified permanently. Story 145. I don't find it attractive. Yes, at first it is exciting and you feel proud, but remember it is a lifelong commitment. It can look worse after a few years, unless the person getting the tattoo truly loves you. Story 146. I remember reading a comment online a long time ago in response to that question. The top reply from a manager said, "If you cannot make good decisions about your own body, what makes you think I will hire you and trust you to make good decisions for my company?" Story 147. Among the people I know with tattoos, I have noticed a strong correlation with low self-esteem and insecurity. I do not have either, so I see no need to get one. Story 148. I think a lot of people overdo it and end up just looking trashy with no rhyme or reason to their hodgepodge of tattoos. Story 149. I have never considered a design I would want on my body forever. I have a fear of commitment and would probably get tired of it quickly. I honor loved ones who have passed away by having their names engraved on a pendant I wear. I do not want a tattoo. Story 150. I hate needles and I know I would have major tattoo regret. I do not wear the same clothes I wore in high school, so why would I want to put something permanent on my body? Tattoos are considered low class. Story 151. I have not even used the stickers I have had for more than 10 years. Choice paralysis. Story 152. Tattoos just aren't my style, but I admire them on others. Story 153. I haven't had time. They're so mainstream right now that people get anything tattooed on their bodies, sometimes frivolous things, and I don't want to look like everyone else. Story 154. I have plenty of scars. They are like tattoos with better stories. Story 155. I've never understood what people want to prove by having them. To me, it reeks of self-importance, thinking that people would be interested in the statement you're making. Story 156. I got a temporary stick-on tattoo that lasted a couple of days. I didn't like it, and the subject was unimportant. That led me to think tattoos were not for me. Story 157. I recall seeing family members and friends with tattoos who consistently said it was a mistake. After the tattoos faded or were affected by weight changes or skin aging, they were not as happy with them. Some got tattoos while they were in the military and said they were different at that time. That is my reason, but I have no judgment against those who choose to get tattoos. Story 158. I feel like I would regret it later. I am not the same person I was 10 years ago, and I know I will be different 10 years from now. My future self could hate the tattoo I get. Story 159. I always thought I'd eventually get sick of whatever design I got. Story 160. No matter how old you are, think about what you thought was cool at 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old, and so on. Notice any change? Too bad you had it tattooed on your body. Very few tattoos are good to begin with. Even fewer look good on you when you start to sag. Story 161. I see so many dumb tattoos. I never wanted to regret having something permanent on my skin. It's gonna look like shit eventually. Story 162. The main question should be, why don't you get a few more tattoos, eh? Story 163. Because I cannot like anything for that long. I would regret it at some point. Story 164. I want to, but I am too lazy to find an artist and I have other things to spend money on. Story 165. I am afraid of needles and do not like pain, but mostly because I am an artist and overly critical of other people's work, including my own. A tattoo would have to be on my back so I cannot see it because I would notice a flaw and fixate on it. For the same reason, I cannot display art in my house. Story 166. Well, what seems cool today will be normal tomorrow. What about 60 years from now? Also, why would I inject ink into my skin and risk infection or cancer? Absolutely not. Story 167. They are ugly and will worsen as you age. Story 168. People who don't get tattoos have commitment issues. Prove me wrong. Story 169. I have not found any image that I am certain I will love forever. Story 170. I would rather spend the money on my other expensive hobbies. Story 171. I think they look ridiculous and I have never been one to do things that most people consider cool. Story 172. I can think of nothing I would want permanently drawn on my body, and I would not be able to go to the onsen. Story 173. I don't like the idea of body mutilation, and I cannot know whether a design I like now will appeal to me in the future. Story 174. The reason I came up with the idea millennia ago was that I did not want any identifying marks. In the age of deoxyribonucleic acid, retinal, dental, and digital identification, it feels a bit silly. I still do not have tattoos. It is probably because I do not like anything enough to have it on my body purely as art. Now, if I could get an organic circuitry tattoo that did something useful, that might be a different story. That is silly because in many ways it would be a worse idea given how technology companies operate in this world. But whatever. Story 175. I get irritated by nail polish if I have it on for too long. I cannot imagine having a tattoo. I would want it removed at some point. Story 176. They are expensive, and as much as I would like one, I would rather spend my money on things I can use. Story 177. I am having a hard time deciding names for characters in video games. I can't continue playing if I don't like the name. How can I possibly decide what to put permanently on my body? Also, 99% of tattoos look bad. Story 178. Why have it? Spending money on something ugly and painful is a hard pass. Story 179. I don't feel the need. I thought about getting one for my dad and sister when they passed away, but I wondered, what's the point? Is it really for me or for other people? I don't need tattoos to prove how much I loved my family. Tattoos are very common these days, and many of them look cheap and nasty. Story 180. I have seen too many bad and old tattoos on people. They end up looking tacky. I do not want that on my body. Story 181. Never had a good idea for one that's worth the permanence. Story 182. At my grandfather's funeral, my grandmother whispered to me, "Do you know they have tattoos?" Gesturing furtively to my uncle and his second wife. I said, "No, whatever." She then asked if I had any. I said no. She patted my hand and said, "Good boy." Her approval was more important than any stupid cartoons I would ever graffiti on my body. Story 183. I love looking at tattoos, but as the son of a Holocaust survivor, I have chosen to remain free of any ink. It is my personal choice. Story 184. 1. I can't think of anything good to get tattooed. 2. The only spots on my body where I would even consider a tattoo have birthmarks that I like and would not want to cover. Nature's tattoo, I suppose. Story 185. Because tattoos are for sinners and devil worshippers. I am covered and have face tattoos. Story 186. Too trendy. Anything that looks cool and original eventually becomes too played out. Barbed wire tattoos on the arm, forest tattoos on the forearm, and so on. Story 187. I am East Asian and my parents would have disowned me if I had gotten one. Story 188. My granddad had a tattoo. He always said he regretted it. It was a blurred, faded design for many years. He lived into his 90s. Kind of stuck with me. Story 189. I have never found something meaningful enough to ink permanently. Maybe one day, but for now, my skin is a clean canvas. Story 190. I don't like tattoos. I think they look trashy. I especially do not like them on women. It would be a deal breaker for me. It's just my opinion. I know they are popular. Downvote away. Story 191. I do not feel the need to draw what I like or care about on my body. I think it looks bizarre and unattractive. Story 192. It is not a priority and money is kind of tight. I am also still not sure what I want as a tattoo. Story 193. My skin is too sensitive. I asked tattoo artists if they would tattoo me, and they advised against it after examining me and asking questions. Story 194. Both of my brothers got tattoos in their early 20s, and I did not like the result. I learned that tattoos usually turn out well only if you are prepared to pay good money, and even then they fade over time. I did not see the point. Story 195. They are permanent and I might regret my choice later. I am not a big fan of pain or needles. Story 196. Tattoos are for pirates. They look trashy to me, especially on a woman. Story 197. Growing up around tattoos, I figured not having one kept me unique. Story 198. Tattoos are for criminals and people who want to be cool. Story 199. It never occurred to me to get one. I'm 68. Growing up, sailors and people who had been in jail were the only ones who got tattoos. I also had a short period growing up when I had acne. It bothered me horribly to have marks on my face. I could not imagine purposely marking myself with tattoos. Story 200. It is a sign of lower class. I do not mean this as an insult, but rather an observation. If you look at American executives, business and political leaders and so on, The percentage with tattoos is much lower than among blue-collar workers. Story 201. After many years working in a surgical setting, I have seen numerous poorly executed tattoos and passing fads. Today, most people have a few tattoos. Many say they want something meaningful and different, yet those designs often end up looking like the same unique tattoos. To be truly different, I choose not to have tattoos. Story 202. Sweetie, you don't put a bumper sticker on a Bentley. Kim Kardashian. Story 203. I have a favorite shirt. I like it and think it's cool. I do not want to wear it every day for the rest of my life. That's how I feel about tattoos. Story 204. My religion is against tattoos, but when I see how some people view their bodies as things to be scribbled on, used up, and thrown away, I appreciate why that prohibition is meaningful to me. I see how people such as Nazis, gangsters, and pimps tattoo others to mark them as property. That also turns me off. If it is meaningful and brings joy to others, that is fine, but it is not for me. Story 205-1. The thought of permanently altering my body with a graphic freaks me out. It feels like a trap. Why would I want to be stuck in that situation? 2. They generally look ugly to me. I see no visual appeal. I realize many people disagree with one or both of these points. If you wish to get a tattoo, there is no judgment here. They are definitely not for me. Story 206-1. I have not found anything I like and would want for a lifetime. Even memorial pieces do not feel sufficient for who I have lost. 2. I do not want to pay a lot of money to decorate my body when I already like the way it looks. I would rather donate the money or spend it on my family. 3. I have no real interest. I have heard it can be addictive, and I do not want to become addicted. Story 207. I have commitment issues. I am so glad I did not end up going with what I thought would be a cute idea. A bat with its wings spread on my lower back. I told a friend that was what I wanted, and she asked if I meant a tramp stamp. Well, that idea was gone. I am also not a fan of pain. Story 208. My phobia of needles prevents me from getting tattoos. Several people told me that tattoos do not work that way. But my brain cannot get past the phobia. If I did move past it, I would get 2 memorial tattoos, one for my dad and one for my grandfather. Story 209. Human skin is a poor canvas, and the perfectionist in me would probably not be happy with the artist's work. Story 210. Priority was a factor. Tattoos are expensive, and I never justified the cost. I had one tattoo I would get that would be meaningful. Now I have 2 memorial tattoos. Over the years, not having tattoos has become the rare, badass thing. Everyone has a tattoo. Feels kind of overdone now. Story 211. Putting graffiti on the human body is like vandalizing a great work of art. Story 212. I just don't like them. I don't care what others do and they don't bother me, but I'll never get one. I honestly don't see the attraction. Story 213. I have an idea for one but haven't pulled the trigger. I don't like needles. Story 214. No hate here. They don't age well and revert to a gray, washed-out look. Story 215. My gut feeling always told me not to do it. I do like them, though. Story 216. I do not like anything enough to have it on my body forever, and I think they all eventually look trashy. Story 217. I've never had my ears pierced, which is uncommon for women. For that reason, I have never gotten tattoos. I like that I have no body modifications. Story 218. I am not passionate enough about anything to have something permanently affixed to my skin. Story 219. It is not my style or something I value. It also was not common for girls or women to do when I was younger. Story 220. I spent too much time in prison, and I saw them everywhere. Story 221. That seems far-fetched. I think tattoos are unattractive. When I see a tattoo on a woman, it looks bad to me. Story 222. I have never seen or imagined an image or message that moved me to such a degree that I needed to have it permanently etched into my skin. But I remain open to the possibility. Story 223. I considered getting one about 30 years ago but decided against it because I did not want a permanent mark for a whim, and now I am glad. Seeing so many people with them has made them less appealing. I love how they look and what they represent, but they are not for me. Story 224. I prefer simple clothing. I do not even wear a watch. A tattoo is too much for me. Story 225. In women, at least, they tend to make a person look dirty. It's just not my aesthetic. Story 226. I do not like regret, and because my tastes and interests change often, I did not want a permanent tattoo only to hate it 3 months later. Story 227. I am not attached to anything that makes me want to put it on my skin. I learned what regret felt like as a child. I do not need to experience it again with a tattoo. Story 228. I put it off long enough that I got old and lost interest. Story 229. Rebellion seemed so popular that I decided being one of the last people without a tattoo would be cooler. When even grandmothers have them, the cool factor declines. Like Facebook, aging tattoos simply get uglier. Story 230. I am going to Japan in December. I want to be able to enter the onsen. Story 231. I don't want one. What more do you expect me to say? I'm not into tattoos. Story 232. I didn't want them enough to get them done. Now years have passed, and I don't care at all. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.